Hi, Amanda Wakeley here. Welcome back to Season 6 of Style DNA in partnership with Zoe Science and Nutrition. Just as we curate our wardrobes to express our unique style, Zoe is a personalised nutrition program that helps you make smarter food choices to benefit your personal nutritional needs. When you don't feel your best, it can really impact your mood and your confidence. As someone passionate about empowering people to feel their best, I believe that understanding nutrition is key. I am now on my personal Zoe journey. Having done the initial testing phase, I'm now wearing my continuous glucose monitor, which shows me in real time how my body reacts to different foods. This in turn is helping me make informed choices for my body, and it's enlightening to understand more about how my body processes different types of food so that I can optimize my food choices. Understanding nutrition is crucial to feeling our best. If you're interested in boosting your energy and enhancing your gut health, I invite you to join me on this journey. Head over to zoe.com, take their free quiz, and see what Zoe membership can offer you. Don't forget to use the code STYLE10 for 10% off your membership. I look forward to sharing more of my experience next week. Let's compare Zoe notes. Today, I'm going on a sartorial journey with the celebrated British milliner, Stephen Jones, OBE. Jones is considered one of the most radical and important milliners of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. He's also one of the most prolific, having created hats for the catwalk shows of many leading couturiers and fashion designers, from John Galliano, Kim Jones and Maria Grazia Chiuri at Dior, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Vivienne Westwood, the House of Schiaparelli, to Rei Kawakubo at Comme des Garçons. His work is known for its inventiveness and a high level of technical expertise. Jones co-curated the 2009 exhibition, Hats, an Anthology, for the Victoria and Albert Museum. Stephen's hats have adorned rock stars and royalty, and way beyond. Hello and welcome, Stephen.
Hello, darling. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here. It feels like yesterday, dare I say it, that we were at Buckingham Palace.
Of course we were, darling.
Receiving our OBEs, but that
Yes.
was back in 2011.
Yes, a long time ago.
God, being taught how to curtsy and bow.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And the staff and everything being so wonderful and so charming. When we arrived, my husband, my mother, and Oriel Cullen, who was my co-curator, we drove, of course, into the centre of the palace, and there was a knock on the window, and my mother wound the window down, and they said, "Excuse me, Mrs. Jones?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "We're your footmen for the day." And they were both 6'2" and eyes of blue. So, of course, my mother was in complete heaven the entire time.
It was a magical, magical day, wasn't it?
Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah. And also quite revealing, because we were receiving awards for fashion and our contribution to fashion. But when you heard all the different stories of why people had received theirs, especially military ones, or just a lady who'd helped in a playgroup for 50 years...
It was humbling, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I'm sure,
completely.
you know, like me, you were talking to the people before you and behind you, sort of in the line to go and get the be presented.
Yes.
And I loved hearing those stories.
Yes, yes. And King Charles presenting them on that day.
I know.
Yes.
I know. Yeah, very, very special. Now, talking royalty, I know our work has adorned the same royals. We both dressed the then Meghan Markle for her first appearance at the Commonwealth Service in 2012. What was that process like for you?
I mean, she's extraordinary, and I'd met her before, a little bit before, and as an American, she wasn't fully versed exactly in the protocol. Why should she be? We wouldn't be the other way around. And it was great being able to talk to her and inform her of how it would be and the thing to wear and what sort of hat it could be, and put her mind at rest, really, because I think that if you're not born, for example, into British society or whatever, you don't know. Why should you? And she was great because she's an actress as well. So I can put a hat on her and she can act the part of the hat, because I think that's the point of the hat. The hat makes you become the person that you want to be or should be, not necessarily the person that you are.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. I mean, your life at the moment is still a whirlwind of creativity, you know, from runways to race courses, from pop promos to royal garden parties. What are you most excited about at the moment? What projects are you most excited about?
Well, in a funny way, the next hat or the next collection.
Yeah.
If you're a fashion designer, that's the real thrill of what you're going to do next.
Yeah, I
and that
totally
doesn't really
understand
change as
Yeah.
the years go by.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's like the first time, because you learn how to do it, but that thrill and excitement and adventure of how you want people to look and how you want to express yourself has never dimmed.
You work with a lot of couture houses and a lot of very senior designers. How does that collaborative process work?
It's different for everybody. I always think it's like, if you go into a cocktail and people ask me, how on earth can you work with Ray Kawagubo or Maria Grazia or Tom Brown or Marc Jacobs? How does it work? Imagine if you were going into a cocktail party, you would have a slightly different conversation with every single person in the room because you know them or you're wanting to, and it's human nature that you try and find that contact, that feeling of understanding between each other. So basically, I'm trying to have a conversation with each of those different people, and we find the particular place that we can combine our creativity. And basically, the hats that I create are that conversation, because the words finish at one point and then the hats start. But it's always, whenever we're having a design meeting, it's like with you, we have gossip, 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 gossip. Oh, and we're supposed to talk about hats as well. It's very much that way around.
Why do you think it is that hats are so quintessentially British, or have endured in such a way in Britain?
In fact, circling back to King Charles, when I was given my OB, which I received for services to millinery, which has been the only one that I know of, he said, "Oh, hats, why are hats so important?" And I said, largely because of Her Majesty your mother, sir. And it is Queen Elizabeth II grew up with hats. She saw that it became a signifier of royalty in the 60s and 70s, really, and just carried on wearing them. It was part of her uniform. It was natural for her to put a hat on as it was putting her glasses on.
You've just announced a major retrospective opening in Paris at the Palais Galliera.
Yes.
In October?
Yep, in October. It opens to the public on the 19th of October. And it's called Stephen Jones Chapeau d'Artiste. Gulp. And
I cannot wait.
And basically, it's slightly geographical. So it starts off in Cheshire and then comes to London and then goes to Paris. But it's really about my relationship with Paris and Paris's relationship with me. And that's the big story of it.
Now, I know you work on both men's and women's hats.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a preference?
Men's hats, in a way, are more limited, or the standards that you have around a men's hat, you know very well, and they are more limited. So there's a top hat, there's a bowler, there's a deerstalker, the baseball cap, all those things. If you think of women's wear and women's hats, it's much broader, but it's just a different brief. And I'm sure with you, with your career, you know, you have different briefs. Is it a day dress? Is it an evening dress? Is it for the country? Is it for town? Is it for what climate is it for? So that's one of the things that you work within. Funnily enough, I saw this past week for Dior in the haute couture, I was making, within the haute couture as well, I was making a hat for a man. So that's a fascinating thing.
I mean, everything has become so fluid now. And in fact, I have to say, I loved that.
Including a glass of wine, which I'm just about to snack on.
Go for it. I loved that recent feature on you in 10 magazine.
Yes.
And amazing looks, which were quite fluid.
Absolutely.
And
I
did
requested a Martin Margiela outfit, and I knew there was a skirt on it, and I thought, well, it's a bit like a kilt or something. And then there were a pair of heels, but what I had not realised until I put it on, it was an extremely tight pencil skirt with very, very high heels. And I thought, oh, God. And literally it was a Monday morning as well. And I thought, well, should I put this on or not? And then there was a female photographer and all my staff, and they said, come on, why are you dithering about this? And I said, well, I'm not sure if I should do this or not. And they said, come on, you look great in it. So I did it. Anyway, it's quite...
loved it.
I love it. And that gender definition, why is it we think that is masculine? Why is it we think it's feminine? Until Victorian times, pink was the boys' colour. Lemon yellow was the girls' colour. Or blue.
Think in the past of all those phenomenal ruffles around them. I mean, just a million
what we would
different
consider much more feminine than now.
Yes.
Yes, it was Beau Brummel, British person, of course, who changed everything around.
I know you've worked on various films. Did you have a favourite one?
I mean, they're always an adventure because the relationship between actresses and hats is quite tricky. Actresses sort of like them because they give them character. Directors normally hate them because there's a problem with continuity, shadows on the face and all of that. Sometimes actresses think that the hat gets in the way of the communication of their eyes with the camera. But I remember when I did hats for Audrey Tautou in the film Coco Before Chanel, which was the story of Chanel's life growing up and everything. I remember putting the hat on her and she said, thank God I can act less.
Fascinating.
And Elizabeth the Golden Age, that was wonderful too.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain milliners who really specialise in film, but if the director or the costume designer wants maybe a bit of a tangential approach to the hats or something which is a bit more fashion, then they will ask me in.
Now, today, I really want to know about your personal style, your likes, your dislikes. So talk to me about what you're wearing.
So today I am wearing a Comme des Garçons suit, which is, I like Comme des Garçons suits for various reasons. Number one, I work with Ray Kawakubo, the designer, but also quite often they're made, you'll laugh at this, they're made from 100% polyester. As I travel all the time, the great thing about a synthetic fabric is you can just hang it up and it looks neat, or the Comme des Garçons ones are already crinkled.
And it's part of the look.
If I wear a Kim Jones for Dior suit, I am there for half an hour pressing it. That was... my suit. I'm wearing a Fred Perry shirt. I'm wearing Bally shoes that are older than me, literally. They're probably 25 years old, but they're in the most gorgeous colour of turquoise, and they're a bit scuffed and old, but I take care of them. Paul Smith socks, and I'm wearing a deer beret from Japan, which I love the shape. Sadly, there's a company who made it and no longer in business, but it's just got a shape which I particularly love. So
Now, that's fascinating because I just assumed that was a Stephen Jones beret.
No, and I have many of my own hats, but quite often people will buy me hats and say, we thought you'd like this, or...
That's brave.
Yes, but at the same time, it's a very sweet and kind present. This was bought by my friend Sawa in Japan for me, and she said, I know you like berets. Do you like this one? Or people will bring me hats back from holiday. There was a chap plaiting this on the beach. My own hats, I keep some at home. They're on rotation because there's not enough space. So I do have hats classified by season. I have spring hats, I have summer hats, I have autumn hats, and I have winter hats, and I have hats for parties. And
do you wear a hat every day?
Yes.
I mean, I always think of you as a very dapper person. Was your father very into his clothes?
He was a very good designer. But of course, he grew up during the war. So people didn't go to art school or whatever. He became an engineer. He worked for Commonwealth shipyards. He became a refrigeration engineer. But I remember years and years ago that I found some of his old school books with the most wonderful drawings in them. So yes, he was dapper and quite like Jerry from The Good Life. He would probably kill me if he said that. Because that would have impelled my mother was Margot Ledbetter, but she wasn't. Well, an element of her was, being from Birkdale near Southport.
Do you remember the moment that clothes actually had an impact on you?
From a very, very early age, and that was my mother. I remember her taking me round museums and galleries, whether it was Speke Hall, near Liverpool, or the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool, or Port Sunlight.
I'm nodding as a Cheshire girl.
Yeah, Lord and Lady Lever art collection, extraordinary collection. And I probably wanted to be outside playing on my bike or something. But my mother showed me those paintings, showed me the Hogarth line, showed me, isn't that a beautiful coronet? Look at his breeches. So I was really aware of appearance from a very early age.
And do you remember the first time you felt clothes making you feel different?
Very good question. I've never been asked that before. Look at you.
Ooh.
Hey, you.
I'll have a sip of wine then.
Celebrate. I went to a very traditional boys' boarding school, so of course we wore our school uniform, and we were wearing our school uniform 7 days a week. I was going to say 8 days a week, but in fact we could wear civvies, as they were called, on a Saturday afternoon after school, because we had school on Saturdays too. And I think in the holidays it didn't really bloom. However, I do remember in 1973 buying the first Roxy Music album cover, and I opened up the gatefold and I thought, good heavens, people can look like this. And it was a whole series of men who looked like that, who looked unusual. And funnily enough, it was more Roxy Music than it was David Bowie as well, because I felt that he was somehow a performer or a mime artist or something like that, who was more dressed up. But the thing about Roxy Music, because it was designed by Anthony Price, it had that balance of sort of weird masculinity and things which we would imagine which were feminine but didn't look feminine. So I think that was my real encounter with fashion. And I think there wasn't a eureka experience. But I think by osmosis, I learned it and experienced it really after I'd left school. So it was very much after everybody else. I was quite a late starter. The thing is, going to boarding school in Britain during the 60s and 70s, you thought you were going to run the empire.
Then you come up to London,
yeah,
and you're a punk.
Yeah, and I was a punk.
Tell me about what were your favourite looks then?
Well, it was funny. On my first day at St Martin's, I walked in and there was a group of girls mainly on the left, all who were wearing beige cashmere, or so I thought. I mean, it was probably beige wool, but it was the aura of beige cashmere. And on the right, there were 4 or 5 punks, and it was literally, do I turn left or right? And I turned right to be with the punks.
And what were you trying to express at that point?
I suppose an independence, something which was new for me. I wanted to create my own type of punk. The worst thing would have been, and for all the very first punks, is wearing a punk look, because that would be imitating somebody else or something else. The only exception to that was if you bought Sex or Seditionaries clothes from Vivienne Westwood. But nobody could afford that anyway.
So how did you evolve your punk style?
Through Oxfam, simply.
Yeah.
And through parents' cast-offs.
The clubbing scene in the late 70s, early 80s, which was sort of the Blitz. This was, early days for you starting your business.
Yes.
But can you describe a typical look that you were wearing?
Well, I had been clubbing as a punk, but punks really went about clubs. Number one, we weren't let in anywhere.
They were about parading.
Yes, I mean, punks were... I only know really, there was the Vortex and the Roxy, but those were music venues. And then morphing into New Romantics, I would probably be wearing velvet. I'd be wearing a suit, but it would be a little Lord Fauntleroy velvet jacket with breeches and white stockings and probably patent shoes.
Extraordinary.
With a buckle on and a beret and gloves.
and all found through thrifting and...
All found through thrifting, or I'd made them myself. But similarly, I could dress up in a different look. I might have a dinner jacket which was all studded or something like that, but I would change my appearance. We would try and wear something different or creative probably every week. You'd spend not all week preparing your look, but it was as important as your college work, certainly, to come up with your new thing.
So where were you getting your inspiration from back then, do you think?
It's in the name, New Romantics. Throughout the 70s, there seemed to have been of course there was glam rock, but that was really about futurism, and punk was about destroying everything. And we probably went back, and we were sort of this idea of nostalgia, whether it was nostalgia for... I mean, I remember seeing Casanova by Fellini at film club at college and thinking, oh my God, I want to look at Donald Sutherland in that. I want to have a jabot as big and frilly as his with sequins on. Some of the inspiration was filmic, certainly, for me personally. Or, Fellini films in particular, that was a big influence. And the world of Rococo, the world of sort of unbalance, that was a big inspiration. But everybody was different. Everybody, some people were really inspired by what David Bowie wore, but took it to somewhere else. Some people would be inspired by the Bauhaus.
Coming to current day, do you ever commission pieces for yourself, or do you buy from the designers that you admire and are working with, perhaps?
Yes, and yes. Sometimes I will have clothing that the designers who I work... For example, I'm working in Comme des Garçons. I wear Dior. I will wear Tom Brown. But sometimes I will commission things too. But being 22, not 21, I have quite an archive of things.
Yes.
To select from.
Now, you famously married your husband in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Is he as mad keen on fashion as you are?
I mean, he really likes fashion. I think I like appearance, but I think he likes fashion and is very entertained by it. And is one of those people who will say, that's not the right white T-shirt. Whereas I will say, oh, it's just a white T-shirt.
Oh, never,
but
is it just a white T-shirt.
I know. But, he's very, very specific about having, the right pair of jeans or the right trainers or the right pair of socks, or, no, I can't use that handkerchief because it's got machined edges and not hand-rolled. I can't use that.
Oh, I love that. So when you got married...
Yes.
Did you coordinate your wedding looks?
Yes, our wedding was quite a strange thing, and because he asked me 5 times, and I said no, because I was very much of the opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it is true that it made complete sense, and we decided, and we toddled off down to Chelsea Registry Office, as you do, and asked what the room. There was one room which held 30 people, which I thought was a bit small, another room which held 2. And I said, the clerk said to me, when would you like to get married? And I said, oh, June or something. And she said, what year? And they were booked for 3 years solidly.
No.
And she said, but sometimes we do have cancellations. And I thought, oh, God, that's not a very good sign. And she said, no, no, no. She said, it's because they're doing something else or getting married in a different place. Or so a few weeks later, she actually called me and said, we have a vacancy, an opening in the diary. However, it was in the place for two, and it was on a Monday morning, the first day of London Fashion Week.
Right.
So dragging everybody else out to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, to be on the pavement outside, because of course nobody could fit in. So that was the story of our wedding, which was a while ago. But actually we've been going out since 1989, so for quite a long while.
How romantic. But what were you wearing?
What was that? I was wearing a navy blue suit, and he was wearing by Sir Tom Baker, who's a rock and roll tailor, and had made me some great suits beforehand. And also, I was a lot bigger than I am now.
Yes.
And Craig wore a chocolate brown suit.
You've obviously got quite a wardrobe from those bigger years. Have you just had it all tailored? How have you adapted?
Well, the main thing is I lost 6 stone about 8 years ago, and which was a third of my body, more than a third of my body weight.
That's quite a lot of weight.
Yeah, the planets were aligned at last. Your metabolism changes as you get older. It wasn't though I was eating Christmas dinner every day, but anyway, it happened, and I decided I was going to lose the weight. So clothes from my 20s and my 30s still more or less fitted. I mean, suddenly I could wear them again. But more recent clothes, and I took my suits to my tailor, and he said, well, we can make you another pair of trousers from what we're cutting out of these. But it gets to a point. One of the things, and this is a curious thing that I never anticipated, because I had quite a large tummy, the fabric has to go round it. So everything was too long as well as too wide. And pockets were too low all of a sudden, and, it was all out of proportion. So a lot went to Oxfam, and I hope somebody who's a bit rounder than I am now is out there and wearing them. And it was the opportunity to buy a whole load of new clothes.
You have been quoted as saying, I'm going to throw this back, you wear clothes and hats to convince yourself and others that you're a certain way. Fashion is still a fabulous, fabulous lie.
Oh, it is. And I remember working with Raf Simons at Dior, and there was something wrong with a hat, and I said, it'll be fine for the show, and I'll just put the volume at the back. And he said, but I don't think that'll be right. I'm not sure it'll be right. And I said, but Raf, fashion is this fabulous lie. And I think I lost him at that point, actually. But it is. I mean, as Quentin Crisp said, we're all born naked. We're all the same. And then it's how we dress ourselves up which makes us different, and we take on all that symbolism and those attributes of place and status and location, and we compose ourselves. The great thing about hats is that hats, in every society, the first thing that people do is, before they clothe their bodies, normally is they put something on their heads. If you think of any tribal societies around the world, that's the first thing which is decorated.
Yeah.
What looks most charming on a baby is this funny little hat with ears on. Yeah. The shoes aren't actually so important.
Yeah.
And I think people look back in 100 years' time and think, very strange, at the end of the 20th, beginning of the 21st century, people didn't decorate themselves on their heads. And there's certain specific reasons why that stopped happening. For example, central heating and greater access to water so you could wash your hair, blah, 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 all of those different things. But it's unusual for people not to decorate their heads.
The hats are such style signifiers, aren't they?
Yeah, completely.
Whether it's a
Baseball cap or
baseball
a beanie.
cap, yes. I mean, always come across as being very dapper, but I would love to know, what does chill out, stay at home Stephen wear?
I probably will wear something jersey-ish, but maybe I'll wear Zimmerli. Do you know Zimmerli from Switzerland?
Yes.
Yes. Very beautiful, very finely made, sort of lounge wear.
Do you have a style icon?
Yes and no, because I think having icons is great, but actually sometimes it stops you from developing yourself. So would you say Noel Coward? Because I remember there's a photograph of him wearing white trousers and a red jacket on a rock, standing on a rock in Jamaica with a cup of tea and a cravat and everything. And I think that's a fabulous sort of camp dandiness. But then you'd have to think, well, one of Tom Ford's collections for Gucci 20 years ago was sort of extraordinary. I don't know. No, not particularly. I mean, maybe I would say Donald Sutherland and Casanova.
If your husband Craig were to describe your style in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Something like smart tailored dandy or something like that. Very occasionally when I have worn, I say, what do you think of this? And I'm wearing, track pants or a pair of trainers, and you'd say, no, not really. With an arched eyebrow is possibly the most damning thing. You just think, oh God, no.
If you're ever uncertain...
Quick, back to the lace-ups.
If you're ever uncertain of what you're putting on, is he...
I do ask him, and I don't say I am completely a contrary person, and I would not say that I automatically disagree with him, but I do take note of what he says. Absolutely. But then I might go and do my own thing. But I understand his point of view. And he will normally choose something that I will look better in. Sometimes I want to be a different person. I don't,
quite annoying,
in fact, care what I look like. I just want to wear lemon.
What would you say has been your worst fashion moment?
I've had a few disasters, fashion malfunctions.
Oh, tell me.
I remember when I was in my second year at college, I made a pair of taffeta trousers, which were purple shot with black, and they were very, very tight. And I got out of a car, and they split down the back seam and sort of round to the front of the bottom of the zip, and basically I had 2 separate trouser legs. Which descended to the ground, and because it was taffeta, it was just
just totally
like tissue
unforgiving.
paper flowing. Yeah, completely unforgiving. And that I learned quite a lot about dressmaking.
That ruined that night.
Yes, that I don't know. You could say it made it as well. We had fun anyway.
I'm always fascinated by whether men think about their outfits as much as women do. Are you very conscious of planning your looks in advance?
Yes, if I have an official event to go to, and I do go to many. So, for example, if I'm going racing, or if I'm going to a fashion show or something like that, that'll be in my diary for a few weeks beforehand, and I will see, okay, my schedule for the day is that, blah, blah, and what's going to fit all that. So I do have to plan outfits.
And will that start with a hat?
Sometimes, yes, because I will think, what's the appropriate hat? So say, for example, I'm going for a lunch or something. I'm very much from the generation that you take your hat off when you're inside. And if you didn't, you would certainly take it off if there was a lady sitting at the same table. But the public doesn't think like that now. And often I'm expected to wear a hat, even at a lunch table. So I will wear one. So I will think, well, what's going to be the correct hat? So even in winter...
That you can keep on.
Yeah, that I can keep on. So even in the winter, I will wear quite a light hat, like a small hat, like a beret or something. I rarely wear a cap because I think that's too defensive. And I won't wear a trilby or something like that because that's certainly to go with a coat, not to go with a suit.
How wonderful. So you've got these sort of guidelines as to...
Oh, yes.
What's the biggest hat you'll wear?
I think in the summertime, because to keep the sun off my face and probably off my shoulders as well.
And would that be a Panama?
Yeah, it'll probably be in straw. My very favourite hat for the summer is one that I bought in a charity auction at Chelsea Arts Club. And it was a lovely hat.
Were you sober?
Yes, I was, amazingly enough, even though I spent quite a lot of money on it. And it was a lovely straw hat, but it had been painted on the outside in little dots in just the perfect shade of turquoise and coral alternately. And I put my hand up and it went up and up and up. And I bought it for a reasonable amount of money. And in fact, it was all the members who had, so, you know, they were all thinking, oh my God, it's Harold Hodgkin who'd bought, you know, or who was it, David Hockney who painted that one. But very fortunately for me, afterwards, I found out it was the chairman of membership. I got free membership for a year.
Brilliant. Let's talk about wardrobe secrets for a moment. What's your favourite tailor?
It depends what for. But certainly if we're talking about morning suit, it's Jeeves and Hawkes. Because they make the real thing. And I don't want a variation on the real thing. I want the authentic thing. So it will be in black broadcloth with a fawn waistcoat and striped trousers. You know.
Yeah. I've seen you at Ascot. You are immaculate. Do you buy anything from the high street?
Yes, I mean, I will buy Uniqlo cashmere jumpers because technologically they're extraordinary because they're actually seamless.
They're brilliant, aren't
Yeah,
they?
absolutely. And they are £99 as opposed to a designer one which is £1,000 or more.
What, if anything, do you feel you've got an excessive amount of in your wardrobe?
When I was trying to find these socks this morning, socks certainly. I mean, when on earth am I going? I mean, I've probably got a pair
When
of
are you
socks.
going to wear them all?
Yes, and because they're not classified in beige, black, navy, whatever, they're all like this giant bundle which I throw out on the bed. And
Guilty secret. What is the most expensive item of clothing that you've ever bought?
well, it wasn't exactly clothing, but I did buy a Dior watch, which is lovely because I thought it would go with a dinner jacket and it'd be a nice watch for evening. I wear an Apple Watch during the day because it lights up. I can see it without my glasses. I have all the notifications turned off. So I bought this very, very smart Dior black watch, and it's matte black face with shiny black hands on it, and it's set with diamonds.
How?
So it was really quite a lot of money. But of course, the thing is, at night, I can barely even see the watch, let alone what time it says. So it's also the most ridiculous, even though everybody said, ooh, that's lovely.
Did you buy it as a sort of treat to yourself for a specific moment in time?
Yeah, I think it was a treat to myself.
What's your approach to sustainable fashion?
I think sustainable fashion is very important. Funnily enough, in the boxing ring of life, in one corner you have sustainability, in the other corner you have fashion. And sometimes the two never meet. However, as a milliner, it's very sustainable because people never throw hats away. If you have a hat, it's always lent to a friend, given to a relation. Hats tend to be imbued with so many memories that they're associated with Ascot or, you know, your friend's wedding or whatever, and you'll get it out and maybe dust it off 5 years later and wear it again, and why not?
Do you get many clients asking you to retrim hats?
Yes, and in fact, when I first learnt about making hats, my job was cutting the turnings of the insides of blouses and making a new trim or a new flower or something so absolutely retrimming things. And historically, also, that's what people did. Hats cost a lot of money, and people used to retrim them every year.
What would you say is the oldest piece in your wardrobe?
Probably my bondage trousers from Vivienne Westwood, which I bought in 1977, and I can still wear. Well, I can wear now. Yeah.
Right, time for some quick fires. What fashion advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Go for it.
Which fashion trend would you most like to see make a comeback?
I recently wore a kilt because Dior did a show in Scotland, and I wore a Vivienne Westwood kilt, and then Maria Grazia also made me a kilt. And it was great and liberating, and why not?
What fashion or beauty trend would you consign to Room 101?
Me with hair.
Your last impulse buy?
A Comme des Garçons jacket, which was really quite a lot of money.
Your views on tattoos?
I get the wrath of everybody now. But in a way, for me, my personal view is I like tattoos on merchant seamen, and they have, anchors or picture of a girl, a picture of a mermaid with large breasts and the name of their girlfriend underneath it. I think they have the right to have tattoos. I know I am the only person in the world, and the rest of the world is right, and I am wrong, but I don't care.
It's your view.
Yes.
Grooming or well-being treatment you couldn't give up?
I couldn't give up my Kiehl's shaving cream. I have searched. I've used every single product on the planet, from shaving cream, shaving foam, hair conditioner, Savlon, everything, but this one is the best.
That's a plug.
Yeah.
High end or high street?
High end, darling.
Crocs, cute or puke?
Puke on me could be charming on anybody else.
Birkenstocks or brogues?
Brogues.
Sports luxe or rock and roll?
Rock and roll.
Savile Row or jeans?
Savile Row.
Dinner jacket, black, white or colour?
Black.
Double-breasted or single-breasted?
Love the idea of double-breasted, but unless it's perfectly fitted, double-breasted doesn't work. And I wish so many men would realise that.
Cargos or chinos?
Neither.
I was about to say I can feel a neither coming on. Trend or style?
Style, but also I think it's very important not to be too pompous about style.
Pattern or plain?
A subtle pattern.
Hoarder or editor?
Editor. Really? Don't give me that filthy look.
Charity shop or resale?
Charity shop.
Boxers or briefs?
Brief.
Budgie smugglers or board shorts?
Board shorts. Come on.
Beanie or baseball cap? Or beret?
Beret. I try beanies, but I'm just not convincing. And a baseball cap, I'm even less convincing.
Finally, at the end of the day, what do you or don't you wear in bed?
Chanel No. 5.
I love it. Stephen, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation. God, I could have chatted through a whole bottle of wine.
Yes.
But thank you for
But that was
coming
great.
here.
And you're a really good interviewer.
Oh, bless you.
Really good. And they were really good questions. And so many of them I had not been asked before, which is quite unusual, I have to say.
I really make a point of trying to ask questions that you haven't answered before, because what's the point of asking you something that is already out there?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, it's interesting because I think trained journalists fall into a pattern, maybe because they have to. But, you know, you come from a very different background.
I do, and it's also, you know, it's tempting to ask a question that you've answered really well before, because that's fascinating. But actually, it's the next question that can be even more fascinating. And you know, I've got this amazing guest in front of me who I've actually done a lot of research on, because I'm fascinated by each of my guests, otherwise they wouldn't be here sitting with me. And so, yes, it's important to me to just try and sort of edge that next little nugget out of the guest.
Perfect.
Oh, but thank you.